The opening months of 2026 haven't exactly gone according to plan for Russian President Vladimir Putin and the Russian armed forces. Ukraine has massively increased its daily long-range strikes into Russia, both in terms of numbers and damage done. And on the front lines, a Ukrainian counter-offensive on the border of the Zaporizhia and Dnipropetrovsk Oblast has reportedly recaptured over 400 square kilometers of critical territory. As if these and other Ukrainian successes weren't enough to make his blood boil, now Putin has a new headache to contend with: glide bombs. In particular, Ukraine has started using its fleet of Mirage 2000 fighters to drop AASM Hammer glide bombs on Russian positions on the front line and in the so-called near rear behind them. So let's take a look at this latest Ukrainian innovation, how it changes the dynamics of the war, and how Putin may be powerless to stop it. Now, in late February 2026, video footage emerged of a Ukrainian Mirage 2000 fighter jet dropping AASM Hammer glide bombs on Russian positions. It's the first time Ukrainian Mirages have been confirmed to be in use on offensive missions on the front lines. For most of the past year, Ukraine's small fleet of Mirages has primarily been used defensively, as a critical component of Ukraine's air defenses. They've been protecting Ukraine's cities and critical infrastructure far from the front lines, trying to shoot down Russia's high-end cruise and ballistic missiles with its own infrared and radar-guided air-to-air missiles. Now, Ukraine is also using them to attack. This evolution in their usage follows the same pattern as the other Western fighter jets in Ukraine's arsenal, the Lockheed Martin F-16s. Belgium, Denmark, the Netherlands and Norway have all provided F-16 fighter jets to Ukraine. At least 38 had been delivered to the Ukrainian Air Force by the end of 2025, 24 from the Netherlands and 14 from Norway, with the Norwegian planes used mostly for parts. A further 19 have been pledged by Denmark and 30 by Belgium, with some already believed to have been delivered and the rest due for delivery in 2026. Like the Mirage 2000s, the first F-16s were also used almost exclusively for defensive air patrols over cities for months, after the US-made fighters arrived in Ukraine in August 2024. It wasn't until the Ukrainian F-16 fleet had grown to a few dozen that some were used to conduct offensive bombing raids with US-made cruise missiles and precision glide bombs. But Ukraine seems to have used at least some of its Mirages in offensive actions without waiting for larger numbers to be delivered, as they did with the F-16s. What determines how Ukraine uses the two types of jets for offensive actions is the type of weapons they use in their attacks. Ukraine's F-16s can carry up to 8 GBU-39B small diameter bombs, or SDBs, at a time. These GPS INS guided bombs weigh 285 pounds and have a range of up to 14 nautical miles when released from high altitude. The US also cleared AGM-154 Joint Standoff Weapon, or JSO, glide bombs for use on Ukraine's F-16s in September 2024, although it's unclear whether they're actually in use yet. It's also technically possible for Ukraine's F-16s to carry AGM-158 JASSM smart bombs, but that step doesn't seem to have been taken yet either. Now, Ukraine's Mirages are also capable of being modified to carry GBU-39s and JDAMers, another US-guided glide bomb. But for now, they're using a French glide bomb instead. Meet the AASM Hammer. AASM stands for Armement Air-Sol Modulaire, and Hammer stands for Highly Agile Modular Munition Extended Range. As the name suggests, it's an all-weather, smart air-to-surface standoff weapon. Designed by the French company Safran Electronics and Defense, it's meant for both close air support and deep strike missions. The Hammer first entered service with the French Air Force and Naval Aviation in 2007. One of its standout features is its great flexibility, which enables it to be used with a variety of bomb sizes, including 275, 550, 1,100 and 2,200 pound configurations. The system's modularity also allows for different guidance and propulsion systems to be attached to the bombs, giving the munition extended range and enhanced accuracy as required. There are three basic variants: the The baseline variant, the SBU-38, integrates a hybrid inertial navigation system combined with GPS guidance. The guidance system transforms a dumb bomb into a smart guided bomb, enabling it to function in all weather conditions with a circular error probable, or CEP, of around 33 feet. The SBU-54 variant adds semi-active laser homing to the baseline SBU-38 model. This allows the munition to home in on laser-designated targets, giving it the ability to strike moving targets with far greater precision. The SBU-54 can operate both day and night and provide significantly improved accuracy in dynamic combat environments. Finally, the SBU-64 incorporates imaging infrared homing on top of the existing INS GPS capabilities found in the SBU-38. This variant allows the munition to match the target area with a reference image stored in memory, enabling highly accurate strikes in both daytime and nighttime conditions across a range of environments and mission types. It's unclear which variants of the Hammer Ukraine's Mirage 2000s are dropping, but it's quite likely to be all three. Between them, the different variants make the Hammer effective for both close air support missions and deep strikes, where it can be launched from a standoff distance, allowing the aircraft to remain safely out of reach of Russian air defenses. All three have a range of around 43 miles, a length of just over 10 feet, a diameter of around 1 foot, and a wingspan of just over 2.5 feet. It's also unclear what size warheads Ukraine is attaching to its Hammers. However, it's likely that most are using the 550-pound variant, since these are by far the most commonly deployed, especially against stationary targets. And for now at least, those seem to be the kinds of targets Ukraine is primarily aiming for with its Hammers. The war in Ukraine has fundamentally changed the way modern warfare is fought. In particular, the ubiquitous use of FPV and fiber optic guided drones on the battlefield has blurred the definition of the front lines. The days of a no man's land running between two entrenched battalions might be over. On the battlefields of Ukraine, drones make it possible for Ukrainian forces to hold positions behind the most advanced Russian positions, and vice versa. Resupply by drone makes it possible for those positions to be held long after the ground resupply chain has been cut. But drones also mean you're not safe in any position up to 20 miles from the most forward positions. In fact, the old concept of the near rear, from which frontline forces are controlled and supplied, is disappearing. Instead, the near rear has become a kind of logistic zone, an active part of the front lines. And it's here that Ukraine's Mirage-dropped glide bombs have the most devastating impact. This logistic zone is where Russian regiments and brigades store their ammunition, fuel and other supplies. It's where the Russians accumulate their troops ahead of assaults into the grey zone and beyond. And it's often where the defences are weakest and their troops and equipment most vulnerable. In fact, Ukraine's recent successes at taking out Russian frontline air defences may well be one of the reasons we're seeing Mirages dropping glide bombs on the front much earlier than we saw F-16s doing the same. Gaps have likely appeared. Now, if that's the kind of cutting-edge insight into the war in Ukraine that you're after, you're in the right place. Subscribe to The Military Show for the latest news and deep dives into the war in Ukraine, in the Middle East, and all the other important hotspots. But whatever the reasons for the introduction of Mirage-dropped glide bombs, they should go a long way towards eliminating one of Russia's key advantages on the front lines over the past year or two. Glide bombs, CAB, also known as FAB glide bombs, are Russian-guided aerial bombs that transform unguided Soviet-era FAB bombs into precision-guided weapons using a Unified Gliding and Correction Module, or UMPK. These glide kits add wings and guidance systems, either GPS, laser or infrared, enabling bombs to glide tens of miles from release. This has allowed Russian aircraft to strike deep behind Ukrainian lines while minimizing exposure to air defenses. Russia's FABs are generally bigger and more destructive than the AASM Hammers or GBU-39s. The FAB 250 is the smallest variant, a 250 kilogram or roughly 550 pound bomb. There's also a FAB 1500 variant with about 1,488 pounds or 675 kilograms of explosive fill and a glide range typically estimated at around 30 to 45 miles. And then there's the big boss, the Fab 3000, carrying an even larger warhead, but with a similar glide range of roughly 30 to 40 miles due to its immense weight and drag. Recently, Russia has also introduced a new glide bomb, the UMPB-5R. It reportedly has a 550-pound payload and can travel up to 125 miles thanks to a Chinese SW-800 Pro-Y jet engine. Now, Russia has been using its glide bombs prodigiously to demolish fortified positions, destroy infrastructure, and terrorize civilian populations. Entire neighborhoods in cities like Mirnorad and Kostiantinuka have been turned to rubble because of them. According to Ukrainian authorities, since Russian troops crossed Ukrainian borders in 2022, Russia has dropped over 51,000 guided aerial bombs, mostly Fab-Cab glide bombs on Ukraine, and they're not stopping. In January 2026 alone, Russian forces used 5,717 glide bombs, a 26% increase from December 2025. For much of the war, the record for a single day occurred on October 17, 2025, when 268 glide bombs were reportedly dropped. That record was later surpassed on February 27, when Russian forces used 328 guided aerial bombs in a single day. Now, thanks to the F-16 and now Mirage-dropped glide bombs, Russia is busy discovering a hard truth. Glide bombs are hard to bring down, but relatively cheap to build. Russian fabs are estimated to cost around $20,000 to $30,000 each. That low cost makes it uneconomical to use much more expensive precision-guided missiles to bring them down. To be sure, Ukraine has used such systems to bring down fabs. From September to November 2025 alone, Ukrainian air defenses reportedly destroyed up to 100 glide bombs. But Ukraine doesn't have the budget to be able to justify using missiles that cost tens or hundreds of times more than the glide bombs used to shoot them down. And even if it did, there simply aren't enough of these missiles available in global stockpiles to warrant this kind of use, especially when the fabs are raining down at a rate of thousands per month with no signs of slowing down. So Ukraine has focused on taking them out at the source. They've begun trying to shoot down the Russian bombers that carry fabs, particularly their Su-34s, before they can unleash their deadly payloads. Long-range Ukrainian drones have targeted fab bomb storage depots and production facilities inside Russia, disrupting supply. And Ukraine and NATO are testing anti-glide bomb drones, such as the French DWS-1, which is designed to destroy cabs mid-flight. But in the meantime, Russia is rolling out modernized fabs at an industrial scale. They're estimated to be hundreds of thousands of Soviet-era kits in storage. Russia announced its intentions to scale up the modernization of these glide bombs with UMPKs to 120,000 annually by the end of 2025. Now, it's unclear how much disruption to that schedule Ukraine's attacks on fab production facilities have caused. However, Russia is reportedly producing around 3,500 glide bombs per month, with cabs now in serial production and deployed in large numbers across multiple fronts. Ukraine, meanwhile, hasn't really had an analog capable of inflicting similar damage to Russia's logistic zone and frontline cities, until now. It'll be interesting to see whether Ukraine uses its glide bombs in similar ways, or once again finds innovative ways to one-up the Russians. That said, there are two main obstacles that it will have to overcome for its Mirage and F-16 drop glide bombs to match or exceed the effectiveness of Russia's. The first roadblock to Ukraine's plans is its currently limited fleet of Mirages, and to a lesser extent, F-16s. Russia can use 4 different aircraft to drop fabs: the Sukhoi Su-34 fighter bomber, the Tupolev Tu-22M3 long-range bomber, Sukhoi Su-24 attack jet, and the MiG-31K interceptor. They're estimated to have around 130 Su-34s, roughly 60 Tu-22M3 bombers, about 200 to 250 Su-24s still in service, and only around 20 to 30 of the specialized MiG-31K variant, capable of carrying heavy standoff munitions. By contrast, Ukraine has at most a few dozen F-16s and a handful of Mirages. Ukraine is understood to have had 3 Mirages delivered during 2025, with one already lost to a technical malfunction and a further 2 set for delivery during 2026. as it upgrades them to the F-4.5 generation Dassault Rafale. But for now, it's not clear how many will actually be delivered or when. That restrictive number is influencing their tactics. With so few on hand, and with these jets playing such an important defensive role, it's understandable why Ukraine would be reluctant to take excessive risks with them on the front lines. The AASM Hammer's relatively small range means the planes are exposed to Russian air defenses every time they approach the front lines to unleash the bombs. However, as Ukraine's fleet grows, and as it steadily degrades Russia's frontline air defenses, this issue should recede. However, resolving the second issue is likely to be far trickier for Ukraine, getting its hands on enough glide bombs to make a significant difference. Before Russia invaded Ukraine, Safran's output of AASM Hammer was described by industry data as symbolic. Annual production was estimated at around 200 to 250 units. That implies a maximum total stockpile of 3,000 to 4,000 accumulated since 2007. That's less than Russia's monthly production of fabs at present. Since 2022, production has increased significantly, driven by the demands of the Ukraine war, changes in French and NATO defense policy, and significant investment in production capacity by Safran, including upgrades at its Montluçon facility. Safran produced an estimated 500 Hammers in 2023, 830 in 2024, and over 1,000 in 2025. In 2024, the French Parliament committed the government to regular deliveries of 600 AASM Hammer bombs per year to Ukraine. Initially, assistance involved urgent transfers from French military stockpiles. The increased production levels achieved in 2024 and 2025 have made it possible to supply Ukraine with new bombs on an ongoing basis, while simultaneously replenishing French inventories. But it's still not enough. Those 600 bombs per year are still 200 times fewer than Russia's production targets. At that rate, it's hard to see how Ukraine's glide bombs can have the kind of devastating impact that Russia's fabs have. It's a similar story with GBU-39Bs. It's entirely possible for Ukraine's Mirages to be modified to carry these bombs alongside its F-16s. And on paper, they're a lot more available for delivery to Ukraine. The US Air Force has planned procurement of 24,000 GBU-39B SDBs, with over 17,000 already built since production began in 2005. As of 2026, Boeing is producing 2,500 of the bombs annually, up from a previous minimum sustaining rate of 750 per year. This output is expected to expand further under the $6.9 billion Lot 20 contract, which supports production through 2035. However, Ukraine is not alone in urgently requiring GBU-39Bs. In May 2025, the US Congress approved the foreign military sale of 1,400 GBU-39Bs to Poland, a critical step in enhancing NATO's eastern defense posture. The $180 million deal also includes logistics support, training, and inert practice munitions. Previous contracts include a sale of 500 units to Morocco for $86 million and 400 units to Romania for $84 million, demonstrating the bomb's continued international appeal and integration flexibility. At an estimated cost of around $57,800, it's one of the most cost-effective and well-rounded munitions of its kind globally. But now, as with so many other critical weapon systems like Patriot PAC-3 air defense missiles, Ukraine has some rather serious competition for GBU-39Bs: Israel. And as with the PAC-3s, Ukraine seems to be quite far down the pecking order for GBU-39Bs, particularly in light of the ongoing hostilities following the US and Israel's conflict with Iran. In February 2025, the US State Department approved the sale of 2,166 GBU-39Bs to Israel as part of a $6.75 billion weapons package. Now, in March 2026, with the Middle East in flames, Boeing has secured a $289 million direct contract with Israel to supply up to 5,000 GBU-39B bombs at a unit price of around $57,800. Now, deliveries are only expected to begin in approximately 36 months, suggesting either that stockpiles are low or they've already been earmarked for other uses. Although there's no evidence that either the US or Israel has used GBU-39s in their relentless bombing of Iran, the sale and unbelievable volumes of other missiles and bombs being expended in the meantime suggest that it's only a matter of time. And as with PAC-3 missiles, of which the US has reportedly used more in 3 days against incoming Iranian missiles and drones than Ukraine has been delivered since 2022, it's unlikely that Ukraine can expect the US to put its interest before Israel's with respect to glide bombs either. Perhaps the solution is ultimately going to be Ukraine devising and producing glide bombs of its own. And given its innovations in so many other areas of warfare, it would be foolish to bet against this eventuality. But for now, we'll have to wait and see how Ukraine gets around this conundrum and what kind of difference limited quantities of glide bombs will make. We'll of course keep a close eye on developments and keep you posted. So make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out. In the meantime, Mirage 2000s and AASM Hammers are far from the only support France has provided to Ukraine. Check out this video about other critical support they've provided. And thanks for watching.